Hello everybody and welcome back to the Steve of All Trades channel. Today I know I look like I'm dressed like a yoga teacher, but it's for a reason. Today I'm going to be talking about layering systems when winter camping and for winter survival, hiking, any of that stuff. And I'm going to go through each different piece and what the importance is, what is available so you can interchange pieces of gear, and what my preference is. Now I'm going to start off by saying I have a very lightweight long sleeve shirt. This is very breathable. It's a Techwick shirt by EMS, and also a pair of very lightweight leggings and some compression shorts under those. And basically any of these layering systems you're going to build up from here. So as we build up this layering system, I'm going to start off with the insulation layers that I'm going to put on top. Now this is called layering, so many layers is implied. Now one thing I learned while I was in the Scouts is the usefulness of these thin quarter zip shirts. These are long sleeve shirts. This one's also by Eastern Mountain Sports. And it's very thin, it's very breathable, but it also provides a nice little bit of insulation on top of you. Now these, basically everything I have on right now is fully synthetic, but this is a fully synthetic shirt, so it breathes well, and it's also nice and stretchy, and it's, allows for some mobility. Now on top of that, if it starts to get very cold, this is an outdoor research. This one is part merino wool and also part synthetic fabric. This adds a little bit more warmth onto the frame, but one thing that nobody really discusses when it comes to a layering system is there's basically two sets of three that you have to remember. You have to remember a base layer, an insulation layer, and a protection layer. So that's a base layer to keep your core and everything protected at all times, an insulation layer which will come on and off throughout the day, and that's supposed to trap as much heat as possible with the different layers within that insulation layer. And then a protection layer is basically a rain jacket, rain pants, things that are going to keep you from getting wet and increasing your chances of getting cold. So the other set of three is there is mobility, so your ability to move in all of that fabric. There is breathability, so your ability to stay dry, and that's where your base layer comes in the most important, and also applies to your insulation and protection layer. I'll cover those later. And then also sustainability. And sustainability is your ability to take layers off, put layers on, switch layers out as you start to get cold, as you potentially get wet. And it's also your ability to prevent yourself from sweating while you're interchanging these layers, while you're hiking, while you're moving. So right now, basically, I'm going to be putting on all the layers as if I was in camp. I was at the end of the day. I'm not moving much, and I'm trying to put dry layers on so that I'm getting ready for bed. In winter survival, in winter camping, you really don't move a ton, but if you're hiking, you want to start that hike cold. So really what I'm putting on is the extent of what I would wear if I was going on a hike, but as I put more layers on, that's to add more layers of protection. So as you noticed, I have a long sleeve shirt on. I am now up to 3 long sleeve shirts. Now I'm not going to put a ton more long sleeves on because it comes into the aspect of mobility. Basically, I have one more long sleeve shirt, and that is in place of a fleece. So as I put the fleece on, this is really the extent that I want to go, because I want my arms, I want to be mobile, I want to be able to move, and I'm going to be putting on a rain jacket over this. I might even put a down jacket on over this, but this is the first layer of my insulation layer. Obviously a fleece is nice and comfortable. If I'm only wearing this, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm not going to feel like I'm stiff or I'm always rubbing up. A synthetic fabric, once it gets a little wet, it's just kind of uncomfortable feeling. Now, my legs are still pretty exposed. I have these base layer leggings on, but as things get colder, I'm going to want to put more layers on my legs. Now, there's a ton of options for your core and for your upper body, but there's not so many options for your lower body. So these are actually, and mind you, like I said before, if I'm hiking, I'm not wearing these. They are just way too heavy. If I'm hiking, I'm probably wearing these and these green pants down here, but I'll cover that in a bit. So these are Polar Tech heavyweight, basically long johns. So these are nice and thick. They actually have, if you look, they have kind of this grid pattern on the inside, and that helps trap a lot of insulation. I know you didn't really plan on watching a guy put clothes on today, but this is actually very important, and a lot of people mess this up. So now I have on even more protection on my legs, and then on top of that, these are just a pair of synthetic Ems pants. These are not water resistant, waterproof, nothing, but they help break up the wind very well, and they actually are, they're quite comfortable, they're quite mobile. They have zip offs here for your knees, so if you really start to sweat, and especially in all these layers, if you want to just open these up and just let a little bit of ventilation in there, then these are perfect for that. But and one thing that I didn't cover before is actually, as I get down to my lower layers, I want to tuck these in my pants. And the reason I do that is, let me get it in the back, as you move around, as you bend over to pick things up, as you put your backpack on, your layers tend to shift upwards, and that will typically, and especially in extreme weather conditions, that'll expose skin, which could result in frostbite. So basically, this is the first. My legs are basically done for today. This is, I can wear these down to, probably 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and still remain pretty comfortable as long as these are dry. Now on my upper half, I'm still not done yet. This is just the beginning of my insulation layer. And in a winter situation, basically keeping your core warm is the most important part. So these next 2 steps are extremely important. So next I have, this is a Eddie Bauer down vest. It's, luckily Eddie Bauer runs the prices and they run sales all the time. So I was able to get this vest for about $50. But the reason that I'm putting on a vest first is that mobility aspect. So my arms are starting to become a little less mobile just because I'm now on 4 layers around my arm. So this will help boost the insulation around my core, but it also won't add bulk and immobility to my arms. So now I'm basically the same mobility, but now I have this much more. And I purposefully bought this this size in a tall. I'm only 5'9", I'm not tall, but this actually sneaks a little bit lower, so it provides a little bit more coverage around my waistline and around when I bend over and stuff like that. I'm not getting exposed skin, just in case my t-shirts pull out of my belt. Now, on top of that, if I'm really starting to get real cold, then here is another down. This is a down jacket by Columbia. I believe it's called the Lake 22 or Lake 44, something like that. This is a very light down jacket. And the reason why I'm putting on multiple layers of down as opposed to one giant down jacket is a layering system. If it's too warm for a giant jacket, I basically am with it, or if I'm without it. Whereas if it's too warm for 2 of these jackets, but it's not too warm for one of them, then I can still keep myself warm without sweating. So now this is going to get me down to a pretty cold temperature. Like I said, with my lower half, this will probably get me down to about 0 degrees, and this will cover, obviously my legs are covered and my torso and core are covered to stay warm. Now, I have gone hiking in colder temperatures. I have gone hiking in more extreme temperatures. And so in that case, this is a big sucker my parents gave me recently. And this is basically what I was just discussing. This is a big, hefty down layer. This is something that I'd wear walking around camp, and that's really about it. But if I'm really in a pinch, if I fall into water and all my other layers are wet and I need to warm up quickly, this is another down vest that is not adding bulk to my arms, but it's also adding another layer of insulation to my core. So now, I know I look like a snowman, but now I could probably get down to, you know, -10, -20 and still remain comfortable in all of these layers. Now, obviously, I don't need all these layers, so I'm going to take a few of these off because I'm standing inside. It's only, you know, it's 70 degrees in here, so I'm getting quite warm. But those are the coverage of the insulation layers. Now, as I get to the protection layers, there's a couple of in-between pieces that I want to cover. And those are snow pants, especially ones that are waterproof or water resistant, which I have a pair of here. These are another, either you wear them while you're hiking all day and then you take them off and replace it with dry layers when you're getting ready to go to bed, or these are something that you put on while you're just walking around camp. But these are waterproof, or at least water resistant snow pants. They have a bit of insulation to them if I'm getting really cold, especially on my lower half. But I really don't wear these a ton in the outdoors unless it's a super wet environment. If I'm getting, you know, a lot of snow or a lot of freezing rain, then I'll bring these with me just to keep me dry and add that little extra layer of insulation to my body. But you know, these are mostly for sledding and playing in the snow, so don't use them all that often. Another thing is, this is a soft shell jacket, and I'm going to kind of cover these in the order of increased protection. So this is a soft shell jacket. Like I said before, if it's not a wet environment, this will shed some water, it'll beat up a little bit, and it will you know, keep you dry in a very, very light rain. But this is really made for wind protection and to provide a little bit of insulation. This has a micro fleece on the inside. So I wear this when I go mountain biking, especially in the fall and winter time. If the ground is still good to mountain bike on. And I used to wear this when I would bike into work in Boston in, you know, October, November, when temperatures really started to dip. It actually breathes fairly well for it being a windstop jacket, but in reality, besides that, once you start to get into more snowy and more wet environments, it's kind of, you know, a little more of a hindrance than it is a help. So, mind you, my preferred protection layer is just going to be, this is an Eddie Bauer rain jacket, and this is made specifically for the rain. And the reason that I choose this over the other two that I'm going to cover is, under here it has pit zips, so it gives me the ability to vent some heat if I start getting really warm. It's nice and thin. It's not like a super bulky jacket where you get some winter specific jackets and it's heavy. It has a hood on it, obviously, that will help keep me warm. And then it has all these cinch straps on it that will allow me to cinch down and keep my insulation layers dry while I'm protecting myself from the sun. And then finally, this is a 3-in-1 jacket. This is winter specific. And this is my old Elo Bean 3-in-1 jacket. I believe it's the one that the Weather Channel uses. And in reality, the years of use I got out of this, it's a fantastic jacket. It has an integrated fleece zipped into the inside, which helped keep me warm to probably 0 degrees in most situations, just with this jacket alone and maybe a long sleeve shirt under it. The only thing with a 3-in-1 jacket that I found that I don't like is, since you zip the fleece in here, where the zipper actually closes and where it comes together, it feels like it's a cold strip going right up and down your torso. And so that kind of always bothered me, and it was always short, and so I would get real cold right along, you know, the sides and the back, and I got big old love handles, so those would always get cold. And then eventually, you know, this started to strip on the inside, and some of the pieces in here started, this white actually is, you can see right there, started to rip out, and so it just started to lose some of its protection. Also, this is a very, very heavy jacket. It's very bulky. So if I put this on top of the layers that I already have on right now, it would reduce my mobility, and this didn't really breathe all that well, so it would reduce my breathability. So I always tended to sweat a bit in this jacket, no matter how, you know, little work I was doing. I was almost always sweating in this. So I will kind of bring each piece up to you from here. Obviously, I'm barefoot at the moment. These are just a pair of mid-weight hiker socks by Darn Tough. These are fantastic. These are what I wear 90% of the time from hiking, summer, winter, anything. And the reason that I pick these is when I'm in the woods, I'm typically moving around, so these are lightweight enough where my feet aren't going to sweat too much in them, but they're also heavy enough where they're going to keep my feet warm. Also, these go up above my boot so that they protect higher up onto my ankle, so that my my base layers will come down over this and keep everything dry. Now, as I stop moving during the day, as these probably get a little bit sweaty in my boots, what I'll do is I'll switch out to a heavier, more robust sock if I'm going to just be kind of hanging out around camp, or if I'm going to be going to bed. It's always important to switch your socks out before you go to bed, because you're likely carrying some amount of sweat in your boots, and just so you have a nice dry thick layer, even doubling up around that, it won't help all that much if your feet are wet. So taking those wet socks off, putting a nice dry pair on, will help keep your feet a lot warmer. Next, I'm going to be kind of going over the liner part. So these are head glove liners. These are actually a little bit more robust than some of the other glove liners I have. They have kind of like almost like a neoprene fabric and like a micro fleece on the inside. I actually found these on the side of the road while I was biking into work one day, and I've been using them as my biking gloves for colder temperatures for a long time. They actually also have a bit of quilting on the front. I don't know what is in this. It's probably just a synthetic fabric. But when it comes to just glove liners, just to kind of keep my hands warm while I still want those mobility of the gloves, it's still not cold. My hands aren't cold enough where I'm going to be freezing, but they're also, if my skin is exposed, then it is cold. Also, another thing that I would use for work, this is a Smart Wool, just a really light, stretchy merino wool hat. Obviously, it's not 100% merino wool, but this is a nice light layer when it comes to hiking, and it's too cold to not have a hat on, so I want my ears to be protected, but it's also cold enough this isn't warm enough where I'm going to start sweating and start beating sweat in it. So this will probably be good from like 40 down to maybe 50 to like 30 degrees. And then once you get a little bit colder than that, it's going to have a little bit of trouble keeping your head warm on its own. So from there, I would probably just take this. This is an acrylic. It's just a standard beanie. It's a Carhartt hat. So I would just take this and put that over the top as long as my base layer isn't wet. So this is typically what I will wear down to about 0 degrees, maybe to 10 degrees. And as things get a little colder, or if it starts to get windy or maybe even snowy, then from there I'll just really go to hammer it home to a balaclava. Now I always kind of have mine with the ninja setup where I'll put this over my head, and then I have this bit of protection to cover my face so that my face itself isn't getting cold. And then sometimes if it's real cold, I'll put sunglasses or ski goggles on over this just to really keep all that heat in, but also to protect my eyes if it's real windy and painful. Whew, getting hot. So once my glove liners start to kind of fail when it comes to keeping my fingers warm, and there's a big difference between mittens and gloves. Now mittens keep your fingers together, so they help keep them warm a little bit better, whereas gloves, your fingers are independent, so that heat doesn't travel all the way to the tip of your hand. It basically stops once your fingers separate, and then it might get up to your mid-knuckle, but your fingertips and thumbs start to get very cold very quickly. So that's why, for my real protection and to keep my hands nice and warm, these are Cabela's gloves. They actually have, they're waterproof, they're Gore-Tex on the outside, and they have like deer leather palm on the inside. And then on the back of these, they actually have this little gaiter that you can put and cinch down over the ends of your sleeves, so that as heat travels down, it actually will travel all the way into the mitten and all the way to your fingertips. And they actually have little separations in your fingers there so that they are together, but they're also not like sweaty and rubbing up against each other. These really aren't that expensive. They have Thinsulate in them as an insulation. And I think I got these for maybe $50, and they were worth every penny. So I actually really like these mittens. Another thing that's cool, and especially in a winter situation, is, and this goes with the mobility, when I'm not using these, what I'll typically do is just put these little leashes together and put them around my neck, and then put my protection or insulation layers over this. And especially if they get wet, then this will give them an opportunity to dry between my layers, so that when I really need heavy mittens, if I'm using these in the meantime while these are drying, and if my fingers start getting cold, or if these are drying over a fire, then I could take these out and put them on. I really like that little leash feature. And then, as I covered in like my bandana video, having a bandana with you is great. It'll actually provide a little bit of insulation under your neck. Also, having a scarf down here is nice, because it'll prevent that heat loss from coming up from the collar of your neck. You know, if you think about it, there's not a lot of things protecting the heat loss from your neck. So having this, or what I typically go to, especially in a winter situation, is a buff, because I'm trying to, with a cotton bandana, you're going to be holding in that sweat, you're going to be holding in that moisture. Whereas a buff, it tends to wick that moisture a little bit better. So I'll just tuck this in to the collar of my shirt, and then just make sure that this is up my neck and is protecting me. Once it starts getting real cold temperatures, then I have a much larger scarf that I will use, but that is really only in super, super cold situations. Also, this balaclava, if I don't, as I was joking before, I have this in ninja mode at the moment, but if my neck really does start getting cold, I can actually put this on and pull the hood down and just have this over my neck. Or if I want the hood function as well, then this will go down, and this can go down in my shirt while I have the hood on top, and it'll actually keep me protected. So I have multiple ways of keeping my neck warm without kind of the bulk or the hassle of a scarf. Scarves do kind of get in the way sometimes, so I think that's why a lot of people don't wear them. But I typically will wear a buff when I'm hiking and moving, and then if I start getting real cold, then I'll either move to that shamag scarf, or I'll put on the balaclava just to add a little bit of warmth to my neck. Now, if I'm sleeping outside, I will wear that balaclava while I'm sleeping, as opposed to a hat, just because it adds that protection all over my head as opposed to just on top of it. And that'll move along with you if you're in a mummy bag, as opposed to the bag itself, which is moving around you. But I hope you guys learned a bit about the different insulation layers and protection layers and base layers from this video. Please post questions down in the comments. I'm really looking forward to hearing back from you guys. And remember, the golden rule of winter camping, hiking, or survival is cotton is rotten. I will see you guys next time.